The stage lit up as their voices blended into each other during their duets, sending shivers down our spines. Even though Pentatonix had viral hits and Grammy-winning songs, there were unseen fights among the members. Along with their sudden stardom came the stress, pain, and silence that had been building up beneath their perfect facade. This is the terrible history of Pentatonix that we didn't know before. Their five-voice harmony and unparalleled natural ability shook up a cappella music. In the aftermath of their victory on NBC's The Sing-Off, Pentatonix seemed like the perfect group, a close-knit singing family living it up as internet celebrities. Their chemistry was contagious, and the joy in the room was contagious as they took the stage. The entertainment industry is notorious for its tendency to present partially true stories. Behind the harmony there were wounds, tensions, and battles, and the public perfection was at conflict with it. A number of members struggled with issues related to mental health, identity, the constant demands of performing, and fan pressure. More was happening behind the scenes, as was revealed by Avi Kaplan's departure in 2017. His departure led many of his fans to believe that the group had disbanded. Why did he abruptly cease doing something when it was clearly working? Even though they were so close before, the group now seems so far away. Despite rumors, changes in dynamics, and new members, the band kept writing music and playing to sold-out crowds. Observers noticed a change. The spark was not as strong. It would be possible to see the cracks with the human eye. The fact that more than one life was lost, though, is what truly saddens us. Everyone was carrying an invisible burden, in their own unique way. This type of pressure is common when one's passion becomes their livelihood, when others constantly demand originality from them, and when one's personal problems are best left unseen and unresolved. As we progress, we notice that the song might not always reflect the price of harmony. All of this, including the pain, sacrifices, and expenses, is the product of secret decisions. Whatever happened to Pentatonix, really? Out of nowhere, Avi vanished. At what points did the band seem like they were going to break up under the weight of stardom? We would be grateful if you could stay for more of our story. The truth isn't as uplifting as their songs. Three friends from high school in Texas were about to change the face of a cappella without realizing it. Scott Hoying, Kirsten Maldonado, and Mitch Grassi were not only classmates at Arlington's Martin High School, but also shared a passion for music. Scott, who possessed both charm and imagination, was the glue that held the show together. Kirsten, the only female member of the group, had a strong and distinct singing voice, and Mitch, who was incredibly gifted and fiercely independent, had an ear for the dramatic and the out of the ordinary. They would often participate in musical performances in classrooms, school auditoriums, or any place else where sound could be transmitted. Music wasn't the only thing that brought them closer from the start. Because of their singularity, others failed to comprehend them on occasion. But their song could be heard by every person on the planet. They got their first taste of fame when they entered a local radio contest and performed Lady Gaga's Telephone as a rendition. The payoff is meeting the Glee band. They didn't win, but their show was still exciting. With Pentatonix's spark, chemistry, and drive, they were unstoppable. Scott came back to USC to study music after a long break and joined the illustrious a cappella group SoCal Vocals. A cappella group competition show The Sing-Off, which airs on NBC, came to his attention shortly thereafter. His intuition told him, this is it. But he couldn't manage it on his own. He required assistance. His phone call convinced Mitch and Kirsten to try out for him. But the program was not without its rules. A bassist and a beatboxer were two of the 5 members that were necessary. Fate started to step in at that very second. Avi Kaplan was up next. He had trained as a vocal bassist and had a deep, resonant sound that could rattle the floor. Being well known in the a cappella world, he also added credibility to the group. The second unexpected guest was Kevin Olasola, a graduate of Yale University who became famous on YouTube for his cello boxing videos, in which he combines beatboxing with cello performances. He took a novel approach. The 5 of them got together the day before their sing-off taste test. Only one day was required. As they stepped onto the stage, the audience's excitement grew. Their sound was unique, their arrangements were tight, and their harmonies were beautiful and deadly. They did more than just sing the songs. They breathed fresh life into them. The whole world could see how courageous they were. Not only did they compete on the sing-off, but they also won every single song. They reworked hits with skill, emotion, and aesthetic sensibility. Not only were they acting, but they were also changing. For all dreamers who have ever felt their voice wasn't fitting, winning Season 3 in 2011 was a victory for everyone. The actual battle began with the dispatch of the fireworks and the turning off of the lights. After their victory, the group signed with Epic Records, hoping to become famous thanks to their success. The label wasn't sure what to do with the a cappella group because they didn't have any instruments or radio hits. They were too specific for some, and that made them dangerous. After that, Pentatonix was no longer prescribed. That would have been the deciding factor for a lot of communities. Contrarily, this one stands out. They started paying more attention to YouTube now. They started posting music videos from their flat, and quickly became famous for their PTX takes on popular songs. Genuine, unique, and aesthetically breathtaking, the videos quickly became internet sensations. With the rapid growth of their channel, they attracted millions of subscribers and views. Their devoted fan base, whom they affectionately called Pentatonix, became fiercely devoted. Volumes 1, 2, and PTX were released in 2012, and the band continued to release music and grow their empire without a traditional label. A lot of tension was building up behind the scenes, even though the music was playing at a deafening volume. Getting ahead requires capital. People often say that being famous is tough. Being perfect is the bedrock of your company, and it's not easy. The audience was hoping for a miracle, as each chord had to be perfectly in tune, and each arrangement had to be one of a kind. Avi Kaplan, the bassist of the band, began to feel unwell. Avi was a reclusive person who sought peace and quiet in nature and in herself. He felt pressured to constantly be on the move, make appearances at social events, and enjoy the spotlight. Though he was dying of his way of life, music was his lifeblood. Following this, Avi had to make the difficult choice to leave Pentatonix in 2017. His admirers were shocked to hear the news through a touching video. She said, "It's been hard for me not being able to see my family, make music that I feel connected to, and do all the things that made me fall in love with music in the first place." He wasn't talking about drama. The departure of Avi Kaplan from Pentatonix was more than just a lineup change. It was a turning point for the band and its millions of fans. A sense of completion washed over me. Beyond his vocals, Avi gave their sound dimension and depth. He was a constant presence. It hurt that he left in such a genuine, respectful, and honest way. The simplicity of his reasoning was undercut by the intensity of his distress over the spiritual toll that travel was taking on him. He valued home comforts, solitude, and the mountains above all else. The remaining 4 members of Pentatonix were presented with a choice: remain united or part ways. They went with option 2. Subsequently, relative newcomer Matt Solly was introduced. Matt had the charisma, impressive stage presence, and remarkable bass range that the band was looking for. However, trying to understand Avi's predicament was difficult. Although it was unfortunate, Avi's departure was seen by many fans as a sign. There was a sudden thawing of the apparently impenetrable calm barrier. Everyone would soon forget about Avi's absence once gifted baritone Matt Solly joined the ensemble. However, the changeover was far from smooth. Viewers were of mixed opinion. Their sound changed, their emotions changed, and the anguish of loss stayed with them as they continued to tour the globe, release albums, and win awards, including 3 Grammys. A subtle sadness, the kind that comes from progress rather than failure, lay beneath the joy. Their listeners didn't buy it. They kept seeing similarities, and eventually the band had to learn to breathe underwater. It had to be fine-tuned because it had been so easy and natural before. However, the gang continued. On their risky PTX presence, Top Pop Volume 1, they reimagined hit songs like Attention and Havana. The harmonies were clear, and the melodies were daring. Underneath the surface, though, were mounting pains. In a field where everyone's opinion counts, it can be challenging for a newcomer to find their place. They were processing the loss of a friend while simultaneously concentrating on music. Avi had been one of the first 5. No one comes close to matching his level of profundity, humor, and insight. It was also felt by the fans. For some longtime viewers, Matt's arrival was like losing a beloved relative. We were impressed by his new outlook and energy. Although many commenters gushed over Avi and Matt, it was obvious that something had improved. The remarkableness of Pentatonix is due to their talent and the ease with which they handle the limelight. New Christmas albums by Pentatonix reached #1. The band's world tours were a smashing success, and their music had millions of views on YouTube. Nevertheless, the players were under a great deal of pressure, even though they played exceptionally well. The group's cheerful lead singer, Scott Hoying, had long carried the weight of being their emotional leader. As the group grew larger, so did the workload, the amount of time for breaks, and the limitations on our schedule. No matter how much they loved their fans, the relentless work stifled their creativity. Even outside of PTX, Mitch Grassi, famous for his ethereal voice and edgy style, began to find himself. Superfruit was a side project he and Scott worked on together. Because they were a musical duo, they could let their more imaginative, pop-influenced selves shine. It was a chance to let go and breathe, not a rejection of Pentatonix.
Also beginning her own path was Kirsten Maldonado, the only female member of the group. While working as a solo artist, she released music that showcased her exploration of a more pop/R&B sound. This meant finding her voice again for Kirsten. Being in an ensemble used to sometimes necessitate repressing certain aspects of your personality just to keep up with the beat. Now that she was ready, she wanted to see how things went by performing her original song. Reliable, energetic, and firmly planted was the rhythm provided by cellist and beatboxer Kevin Olasola. Even though he was the group's spiritual leader on many occasions, Kevin was worn out. The costs of meeting demands, performing live, and recording grew. Everyone in the group started to secretly ask themselves during the pandemic lockdowns, who am I when I'm not with Pentatonix? As the limelight faded, Pentatonix's life slowed to a crawl from its once frantic pace. The team, used to the din of practices in stadiums, learned something new in the relative silence. Everybody was at a crossroads. Years of keeping their issues to themselves due to their hectic schedules and frequent public appearances were finally coming to an end. Scott was extroverted and driven, and he seemed immovable no matter what. After ignoring his identity, mental health, and fear of oblivion as a result of his success, he started to work on these issues during the peaceful year 2020. He was more open on social media about his anxiety and perfectionist tendencies. Scott finally got down on one knee in 2023 after being engaged to longtime partner Mark Manio. An intimate and extravagant ceremony, his wedding was a turning point in his life, a symbol of love that drew admirers from far and wide. But in interviews, Scott has said that being Pentatonix's leader is stressful, with constant expectations of giving birth frequently left him feeling drained. Even after all this time had passed, he still managed to keep a smile on his face, hiding an inner burden. The mysterious and daring Mitch used his free time to grow as a person. During the COVID pandemic, he started working on a solo project under the alias Mesa. The August 2021 extended play EP, Roses, had a darker, more electronic vibe. It was very personal, didn't apologize, and cut deep. Gracie, in contrast to her experience with Pentatonix, had the freedom to devote herself entirely to the project's examination of individuality and expression. His musical compositions instead, Mitch discovered that being alone allowed him more freedom to express himself creatively and emotionally through clothing. In discussions, he mentioned how difficult it is to be honest and forthright in a profession that prizes excellence. Those who had been following him since he was a teenager thought he had grown up a lot. In addition to letting loose with his singing, Mitch also encouraged others to do the same. The fact that Kirsten Maldonado was the only female member and the group's emotional anchor put her under tremendous pressure for a long time. A quieter strength, one that didn't rely on yelling but on being genuine, became her identity as she grew older. Anxiety, loss, and her own sense of value were among the themes she explored in her solo work again. Her first extended play as a solo artist, Love, allowed her to explore her creative sides, which she felt had been overlooked since Pentatonix became famous. She was very excited about the chance to work on personal projects and follow her artistic interests. Building self-assurance was challenging for her. She was clearly describing a woman who had gone through terrible suffering, as her singing had transformed from sounding like five-part harmony. She also spoke out more about the difficulties she had as a woman attempting to break into a traditionally male-dominated field. During the pandemic, Kevin Olasola prioritized his faith and family. Becoming a father changed his goals in the course of his life. His priorities shifted to prioritize his mental health, parenting, and a healthy work-life balance, all while staying true to himself in Pentatonix. His first solo effort, Dawn of a Misfit, came out on May 9, 2025. In interviews, when asked about the inspiration behind the album, Jay-Z discussed the line from On to the Next One that encouraged him to be genuine and receptive to change, which was a big influence. His signature cello and beatboxing style complement a wide range of instrumental covers, pop songs, and classical samples spread out across the album. A touching song about fatherhood was also written by Olasola and dedicated to his daughter Ka. The indefatigable rock that was Kevin laid the groundwork for the band's sound and philosophy. His transformation into a man with a mission extended far beyond his beatboxing career. When Matt Sully first joined the group, he was very stressed out. Matt became an essential part of the family, despite the fact that he made it hard to separate from Avi. The deep intensity of his journey was concealed by outward appearances. He became well liked by the Pentatonix, gained his own fan base, and eventually became one of them. For Matt, it remained phony syndrome. It has been a challenge for him to prove himself in interviews, both to himself and to his friends. Following their wedding on January parts of 2022, they welcomed a daughter into the world. In the time after, Sully grew into an integral part of the Pentatonix, helping the group succeed while fostering strong bonds with her teammates. The Pentatonix have come a long way since their The Sing-Off debut 12 years ago. They are now much more than just a Grammy-winning quartet, downtown area. Their performance propelled a cappella to unprecedented levels of online fame. They were successful in overcoming industry skepticism of vocal-only music, and paving the way for it. But they left more than just music in their wake. Pentatonix weathered the storm of band member departures, burnout, and industry changes, and even grew. Amidst it all, 5 people discovered the power of vulnerability, the meaning of tears, the path to maturity, and the power of continued singing. This is a story about change. The concept of harmony is more than just a musical term. It is a philosophy that they showcase to all. It takes work to find that sweet spot. It comprises not just paying close attention to external noises, but also to one another, keeping one's energy up, and not letting it dip, and giving each voice a chance to be heard. The Pentatonix World Tour is still going strong in 2024. Seasonal highlights still include their Christmas specials. The band is regularly releasing new original music that shows their deep emotions and their thirst for creativity. They have hinted at future solo work, collaborations, and the prospect of fewer albums with more meaningful content, quality over quantity, in addition to cover songs. Plus, they seem less obsessed with algorithm chasing and more realistic. Contrarily, it seems like they value connection, honesty, and creative integrity more. What does the future hold for the Pentatonix? A new beginning, a respectful farewell, or another Grammy could be in store. But Pentatonix is still going strong and serves as a model for how to stay in unity through grief, recovery, and every one of these centers.